And I'm asking one question here. Is this woman worth that? Has she earned that type of deference? Has she earned that? Has she racked up this type of respect that you're going to go this far to save her honor? Her non-existent honor that she threw away decades ago. I'm just asking you the question, if you think this is funny, and if you think it's minor, and if you think this isn't a result of years of a man being emotionally abused and taken advantage of by the female that he is with, if you think that it's harmless, then you need to look well beyond yourselves, because it's one thing to sit up here and throw up silly hashtags on Twitter and try to exert your daddy issues onto the world. In the real world, this has consequences beyond them. The woman that we're talking about here, has she honored this man? I don't think so, because you see, if you want to talk about defending somebody, I wonder if Jada had the opportunity to defend her husband the same way. If somebody were making mocking jokes about her husband, I wonder how Jada would respond. Oh, wait a minute. We already know how she would respond.
Her husband.
Now, they asked me to ask you a question, and I do have a question I've been wanting to ask you for a long time. And it's pretty simple. How do you put up with Will? I mean, really, look, you're intelligent and talented and successful and beautiful, and you have all of these qualities that, quite honestly, Will doesn't have.
Oh my God.
And I want to know how, after all these years, you do it. How do you do it? How do you do it?
George Clooney didn't just ask that question as a joke and just keep it moving. He didn't do that. He sat there and hammered on it and hammered on it and hammered on it. This is how they honored her birthday. This is how they honored her birthday. She's worth it, so she has earned him trashing his reputation in front of the world. This is the woman who earned that. Protect black women. We should discuss protecting black men, should we not? Honoring black women. Has she honored her husband? If we're going to be honest, has she honored her husband? You know, when somebody was sitting up here telling some rough jokes about him, that was okay. She was sitting there guffawing about it. It wasn't offensive to her.
Simple. How do you put up with Will? I mean, really, look. How do you put up with Will? I mean, really, look. With Will. I mean,
good, honorable, decent, faithful. If the roles were reversed, she would do the same for him, right? We haven't created an environment where we have normalized the abuse of black men, right? This is the good, wonderful, faithful female deserving of you risking life and limb, right? We can go ahead and let bygones be bygones and let old discretions go by the wayside because she's a brand new woman now, right? Because she going through some things and she's not happy. We're supposed to sit up here and sacrifice our integrity, right? Even visually. Sacrificing your integrity even visually. Right? That's what it's worth. Right? You've all seen how it started. Now let me tell you how it ends. let me go ahead and discuss with you all how it ends. Because people don't think of it in those terms. Because it seems to be funny to people at first, but they don't think of it in terms of the real world costs. Let me tell you how it ends. For a man, for a simp, when a woman drives him insane. Y'all remember Kanye West? Kanye married Kim Kardashian in 2014. He'd already endured years of public mocking, pointing out his wife's sexual exhibitionism. I'm going to be kind here tonight, pointing out her sexual exhibitionism. Let's just say it like that. Kanye cared about this woman. Still does. Despite the obvious, still does. And Kanye ignored it all because he was emotionally attached to her. In a family that had emotional dominance over him, he was emotionally attached to her for a while. And the real problem is that Kanye expected that at some point this would pay itself off. He expected at some point that he would be given the same amount of respect that he had given this woman. Kanye expected that at some point his wife would stop being a punchline. She responded to that by going off and posing naked in other places. And you can say, well, he should have seen it coming, but the bottom line is, if you're going to be talking about abusing people in this regard, I want you to go ahead and understand where Will's coming from now. If you are to take these events seriously, and I'm certain that there is an emotional component that is sincere, or at least real, even if the events totally weren't. Kanye expected that at some point his wife would stop being a nationwide joke. She'd stop being a punchline and would become a princess. He waited years for that day to happen. That day never came. And as the years drug on, the world wouldn't let Kanye forget what he'd really married. And eventually he began to unravel. In a viral video, he was driven to the point that he tried to bully his ex-wife's boyfriends and associates into not mentioning her because they were making headlines. Do y'all remember that?
First of all, I want to address Nick Cannon. Like, I understand that you used to date my wife, but, you get in an interview, don't mention my wife. If someone brings my wife up, you say, hey, I respect that man. I'm not speaking on that. Don't be making no suggestions like nobody fucked my wife. Now, the next thing is with Drake. Yeah, I told you that what I'm looking for my spirit to take accountability is the fact that it's people making rumors or thinking that you fucked my wife and you're not saying nothing and you carrying it like that don't sit well with my spirit. If I had a girlfriend from Chicago, her name was Renita, and then you was married to Rihanna, I wouldn't make no song called Riri. So when you're like, oh, I don't know where it come from, you too smart for that, bro. You know where that come from. Don't make no record with nothing that could be confused. Now, I told you, I didn't tell Pusha no information.
The man's psyche was ravaged because his wife's sexual exploits tore him apart. His wife's sexual exploits tore him apart. And the world was perfectly fine with that. And once again, by the way, I couldn't help but notice the world once again was perfectly fine and considered it to be entertainment for a group of black men to be at odds with each other. The world found that to be particularly amusing. I couldn't help but notice that again. And here we are, one more time. They consider that to be sport. They consider that to be fun. And I'm once again saying, if you take a look at what's happened, history repeats itself. History is repeating itself. The issue is that Kanye felt emasculated. He had tried to ignore it, but he felt emasculated by his choice of wife, and it was taking a toll on him. Eventually, it would all erupt And he would finally take issue with his wife's sexual behavior in public. After enduring what other people were thinking, he finally stopped trying to ignore it. And when he started speaking out against it, what did that prove? That proved that he wasn't really mad at these other men. He was mad at himself. But never forget, before the marriage began to fall apart, some of Kanye's final acts were to go around on reckless episodes trying to intimidate other people into being quiet about the things that were bothering him. His wife was bothering him, and he was in the final stretch of his marriage, when it began to unravel, he was trying to intimidate other people into not touching on the subject of his wife. Let me see if I can go out and publicly be reckless and intimidate them into it. Sound familiar? Trying to intimidate other people in order to prove that he loved his wife. And ultimately, this did nothing to make his wife want to stay with him. They wanted to medicate him even more. His desperate lashing out at the world on her behalf didn't make him look stronger to her. In her eyes, it made him look weaker. It made him look weaker than he'd ever been. That was his reward for trying to defend her publicly at all costs. And Will Smith now looks the same way. Will looks the same way now. Let me ask you a question. Does anyone really believe that Jada has more respect for Will now than she did 24 hours ago? Do you believe that she has more respect for him now than she did 24 months ago? Do you believe that when she got backstage, she was thrilled with it? Do you believe that she sees him as more of an alpha? Do you believe that she thinks about August Alsina or all the other men any less now because of what he did? Does anyone really believe that his little public stunt elevated him in her eyes? Or does she now just see him as a sobbing, emotionally erratic beta simp who can't control his emotions, just like Kim began to see Kanye? Understand something here. The bottom line is that the message that is being sent to everyone is that no matter how low class a female, no matter how disrespectful, no matter how disreputable she is, no matter how ungrateful she is of you, no matter how poorly she treats you, even if she humiliates you in public, you as a man are required, you're obligated to defend her in public, even if she has repeatedly humiliated you in public. This is not chivalry. This is slavery. This isn't a power move. It's a simp play. And this is what they're telling black men you have to be. That now it is no longer sufficient to protect them physically, that you need to be willing to do jail time, risk your career, risk your freedom, risk your life. Do you understand how many men get killed every year jumping in front of another man simply because some woman told him, ain't you gonna get over there and do something? She's not in any danger. Let's be very, very clear. She's not in any danger. Jada was in no danger. When you talk, it's ridiculous to talk about protect black women. She was in no danger. She was at a damn internationally televised event. There was nothing in danger except her non-existent honor. In other words, there's nothing to protect. But you're fantasizing that it's still there. And even worse, you're fantasizing that if you act like it's there, everybody else will. Here's the real crazy part about it right now. if you believe that all of this was authentic, understand something. There are a bunch of comedians out there a whole lot more savage and a whole lot more street than Chris Rock. And all of them right now are sharpening their pencils. They are writing down hella jokes about your woman. They're getting ready to do it all. And they would love for you to run up on them. And if you attempt to do that, I'm just curious where she gonna be at if it goes down that way. Where's she gonna be at? If this was intended to make your wife a lower profile target, you just did the opposite. She's now a bigger target by more people than she's ever been. You can go look at DL Hughley's timeline on Twitter. I'm not going to run down the name of comedians. They're already right now working out their routines. It doesn't matter what Chris Rock does or doesn't do after that. There's a whole bunch of other dudes out there waiting. For all the people who egged him on and butched him up and giving him attaboys and whatnot, you're going to hear more of it now than you ever did. The Streisand effect. And this is going to be the Streisand effect on steroids.